Welcome to Startup Hacks, a We Global podcast. We explore the stories and secret strategies that women entrepreneurs use to save time and money when bootstrapping and building their businesses. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapina. Welcome back to another episode of Startup Hacks. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapina, and today I'm excited to welcome Jasmine Foroutan. Jasmine is the founder and CEO of Pitch Genius and specializes in preparing early-stage startups for fundraising for the past 6 years. Jasmine's tech career began by working directly with angel investors, which quickly evolved into being on the founder side of fundraising. At Pitch Genius, she's on a mission to get founders funded. She knows what moves the needle for investors, which is why 42% of her clients have successfully raised funds. Welcome, Jasmine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Fernanda. It's good to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us today and being part of the show. I'd like to begin the show by having you share a little bit about your personal background with the audience so they can get to know you a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. Personal background. So I am born and raised in Los Angeles. Been here my whole life. I've lived all over the city, and it's been pretty good to me. I went to Loyola Marymount University, received a degree in entrepreneurship, which, yes, that is a major now. Many universities are adding that as a standard major, which was pretty cool. And yeah, I started my business probably a year out of college, and it's been pretty amazing. The very steep learning curves, of course, because I don't have any higher education such as an MBA or any additional education after just my undergraduate. But at the same time, the best lessons I've learned have been in just doing business, which people say all the time, but I completely agree, and I've kind of lived that. So it's been good. Now it's really, 5 years later that I've been doing what I've been doing, and it's been almost 4 years since I've officially had the business up and running, and yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I know firsthand how incredibly talented you are and good at what you do, and I'm wondering if you could take us through kind of your employment experience and the light bulb that went off and what you learned as an employee and how that translated into your vision for your company. And do tell us a lot more about what you actually deliver as part of your services.
Yeah, absolutely. So I began my career in tech working for angel investors, and those angels were on a mission to get founders and startups from pitch deck through due diligence to closing the deal, which was brilliant and is something that a lot of founders need a lot of support on. While working in that position, I was hired as the operations manager, and I soon was, also the pitch deck girl on the team, helping with the pitch decks. They formally trained me on how to build a good pitch deck, as well as, managing operations, doing marketing. At some points I was also doing sales and bringing in new startup clients. So there were two light bulbs that went off. The first one being, all right, if I'm it felt like I was doing everything at this company, and I told myself, hey, if I can do it for them, why not just do it for myself? So that was light bulb number one. And then the second one being that I got this amazing exposure and experience in watching countless startups pitch angel investors, having them leave the room, and then just listening to the angels deliberate over which investment opportunities they found interesting. And what happened was, and what was very clear, was that a pitch that went poorly was never discussed in the room. It was almost like it really just fell on deaf ears. The angels just didn't absorb any of the information. But a mediocre idea with a really fabulous pitch was always discussed. And that was just like a repetitive pattern that I kept seeing. And there was also all of this buzz at the time and articles being written around how bad founders were at building their own decks and building and pitching investors. And, there's still that kind of same buzz, but that was kind of my second light bulb was, hey, there's a huge need for this. Founders really need the support, and really don't have that insight and don't realize how big of a barrier their pitch is to them fundraising. Um, so yeah, those were the two light bulbs.
And what did you find, just out of curiosity, given your experience, um, what did you find were some of the classic, few mistakes that a lot of founders made when they were pitching those really bad pitches that you're referring to?
Yeah, for sure. In the room, what I was seeing and still see today is either the pitch is just too product focused, right? It's completely focused on what the product is, who it's for, what it's going to do, and there's no really substantial information or insight into what the market opportunity is, why it's interesting, what's their execution strategy, why is that their execution strategy. So I mean, I've seen angels and investors completely stop a pitch if a founder just keeps going on and on the idea, because it doesn't give them, no investor invests in just an idea. They need to understand why it's a good investment opportunity. So I've seen angels completely stop a pitch if that's what's happening. And then the second one I would say is the delivery of the pitch, right? It's just was not rehearsed. The pitch deck is hard to follow, and there's too much on the screen, and there's no story being delivered. It was just kind of dry and boring and unrehearsed. That can definitely kill your pitch once you're in the room. And I think the third and really the most important one is just overall lack of market research. I can't tell you how many founders I've spoken to and have consulted that, they've poured blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of money into ideas that they haven't really properly done market research for. And that's totally fine. I mean, a lot of the times, an entrepreneur's gut about a market opportunity can be correct, but the investor ultimately wants hard data on why the market opportunity is real, why, what's interesting about it, and how is the founder assessing it and looking at it and approaching it.
Right. Wow. So now tell us about your solution. So you were taking all this in and you saw an opportunity for you to become an entrepreneur in your own right and start your own business.
Yes.
And so tell us about Pitch Genius.
Yeah. So Pitch Genius. Well, first I started out just as a freelancer, and that was really difficult because as young as I was and as much as I knew I could support founders, nobody actually trusted me. So I spent a full year building Pitch Genius, and the idea behind it was that the whole mission would be to help and to support more founders and get startups funded. And I'll say this, that your pitch deck and your investor deck does not make you and does not make the raise happen, right? It's the traction, it's the team, it's all of these other wonderful things that are coming into play, but your pitch deck can definitely break you. So I built a service around what is actually happening with the entrepreneur, right? Why are their pitch decks going poorly? Well, in my mind, they're all extremely busy building a business and gaining traction and doing what they need to do to actually get funded. And so a lot of not enough effort is put into the pitch. So the service is built around really taking the pitch deck off of the founder's hands. And for the past, I would say for the first 3 years in the company, we've been really focused on just building the investor deck, doing the market research, doing the market sizing. Now the service has really evolved into kind of providing a full package that will completely prepare the founder before he speaks with a single investor. So that goes from the pitch deck to rehearsing the pitch to making sure they have an idea and understanding about their valuation and how to navigate that conversation, and ultimately what any other resource that they would need before speaking with investors we can provide.
Yes, absolutely. And share a little bit about because I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs who might be listening think about the full kind of pitch package in terms of the types of materials you create, as an entrepreneur, you end up bumping into certain requests from person A and person B, and you kind of connect the dots as a result, like, oh, I need
Mhm.
an executive summary. Oh, I also need this. But can you talk a little bit about the suite of materials that you feel are really important to have?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it comes down to having a full investor pitch. Okay. So your full deck, which can be anywhere from 20 to 23 slides, it stands on its own and it can be emailed. This is going to be the base for any other material that you're going to produce. You can produce an executive summary from it, you can produce a teaser deck from it, you can produce a presentation deck from it, which is really just to say that you're absolutely going to have multiple versions of your pitch, but it really all begins with that full reading deck and full pitch deck. So that's what all of our packages really focus on creating. Um, Often we get like, hey, can we build an executive summary as well? And we're always happy to, but it's my impression that if you can start with just the teaser deck, the full reading deck, as well as a presentation version of that deck, you will be in a good position to start reaching out. Oh, well, of course, and as well as your financial model, right? And having that Excel sheet completely built out and ready to go, and being prepared to pitch that as well. So long as you have those four items, you should be prepared enough to start having conversations. If you ever have an investor who's like so insistent on you having a one page executive summary because that's just what they like, then you create it for that investor at that point. But otherwise, like if you were to really sit and create everything that you could imagine for, any investor and what they might ask for you, I mean, it's just kind of impossible in a lot of time. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in just kind of sticking with the basics, and if there's additional things that are asked for, great, we'll deal with it once you get there.
Right, absolutely. And for some of the listeners that don't know, oftentimes the pitch deck that you use in a room to pitch an investor is a presentation deck. So you want as few words on the page as possible, as Jasmine indicated. But if you then get a request for someone to see your deck, if you mail out that deck, if you email it out, someone who reads that isn't really going to understand exactly what you're trying to get across because there's not a lot of content on the page.
Exactly.
In which case, that's why Jasmine's referring to a readable deck,
Yes.
which has a little bit more of that content on there. And then oftentimes, if it's something you're using for marketing purposes, that one may be even a little bit different because they're not going to read a 23-page deck, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So then that's where the teaser deck comes in, and you have
Well,
something that's 10 to 12 pages, and you're always starting with that. And actually, you're really always just starting with an email with an elevator pitch, right? Like you're
right,
not even actually showing the pitch deck or any kind of version of the pitch deck to an investor until you
right,
get that to that point in the conversation.
right.
But yeah, having those multiple versions is really it's really critical. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
yeah. So, so I can certainly vouch for Jasmine. Her work is amazing,
Oh,
and
thanks.
yeah, 100%. So let's switch gears because the focus of the show is startup hacks. But I did
Sure.
want people to really have a good understanding of your background because I think it is of real benefit to the listeners. So, as you were starting out, obviously managing your time and money is really critical. As you know, you started out, as most people do, as solopreneurs. So, how did you save time and money and still maintain a competitive edge during that period? And what was some of the secret sauce strategies that you used that you could share?
Yeah, definitely. I love that question because it makes me think back to that first year while I was building the business and how hard I worked and how
Yeah,
fun. You're just like so exhausted, but at the same time loving it. But yeah, just reflecting back, let's see. So I immediately, well, okay. First, I decided, okay, I can't have like a normal full-time job, right? That's going to require a lot of mental capacity. So I decided to work at a restaurant as a hostess, and seat
Mm-hmm.
people and, get paid hourly and full time and during my lunch breaks and